Alright, welcome to another 902 gaming video, and today I'm going to be going over a blue-white prototype deck that I built. I based it off a deck that one of my opponents was playing, and they absolutely destroyed me with it. I didn't see their exact deck list, but I kind of got the idea of what was going on, and I just sort of built my own deck. Hopefully you enjoy this video. I was playing Arena the other day, and an opponent absolutely destroyed me with this deck. Mind you, I was playing a mid-range with very little counter spells, and I didn't have their entire deck list. If you've been watching any of the recent videos, I've been trying to get Karn to work properly here. Some of the issue I have with the deck is finding the right cards, finding the right combination of colors. But what I did was basically try to fuse the Karn deck that I was playing the other day and this deck, where my opponent was playing a whole bunch of these prototype creatures and then using a touch of the Spirit Realm or Planar Incision to basically exile them and then have them come back into play. You can pay 4 mana, get a 4/5, so you can cast Planar Incision, which says exile target artifact or creature, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter. Basically what you would do is play this for 2 mana. You play the prototype. It's a 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance that can pump itself. And then you exile it and it comes back into play as a 5/6 with Vigilance, which is pretty big. It's a pretty big move on turn 3. So if you play this on turn 2, then you can cast Planar Incision on turn 3, or you can protect it on turn 3. It's a very, very powerful play. Most players can't deal with that. It tends to be a lot bigger than most things. But then you can also combine it with the Steel Seraph, which I've seen it being played in a lot of other decks besides decks like this. So I've seen it played a lot in Esper. I think this card is actually very, very powerful. Basically what this card is, it's either a 3 mana 3/3 flyer, which in and of itself is still pretty good, or if you can manage to get it, you either exile it and then have it come back as a 5/4. But what it does is at the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. Now, if you can manage to curve this into this one, this one starts beating in the air for 2 every turn, and then you can flip it for 5 every turn with the Planar Incision. Or worst case scenario, the Touch of the Spirit Realm it's kind of your catch-all. It can kind of deal with any artifacts or creatures. I initially thought this actually can exile enchantments, but it can't. But it can also exile it, and then you return it under your control at the beginning of the next end steps. This allows you to have a removal spell and a protection spell, and it kind of combos with these. So this is one of the most important cards in the deck. If you have the Hulking Metamorph, which you can prototype it for 4 mana, and what it does is it enters the battlefield as a copy of an artifact or a creature you controlled, except it's an artifact creature in addition to its other types, and its power and toughness are equal to Hulking Metamorph's power and toughness. So if you can have this, if you can curve in from Assembler to Seraph to the Hulking Metamorph, you basically on turn 4 you can have 2 3/3 flyers that will give vigilance and lifelink or flying to one other creature. So basically you can have on turn 5, you would have this guy would fly, the Steel Seraph would fly, and the Hulking Metamorph would also be flying, and then you could give vigilance and lifelink. And it's pretty crazy how good this card actually is. The card seems kind of terrible on the surface, but it actually plays a pretty significant role in the deck. It can actually allow you to have multiple copies of the Steel Seraph. But then we have Karn, and then basically Cityscape Leveler. We have some Stern Lessons to draw some cards, and a little bit of removal spells. Soul Partition, which actually seems to be pretty good at this point, just because it can deal with anything. Then we just have Fateful Absence, which can just deal with random creatures. Shield Dread is one of the ones that gives this deck a bit of problems. Then we also have the Combat Thresher, which is one of the better ones to combo with the Seraph or the Hulking Metamorph, especially if you manage to exile it, because what will happen is this card is prototyped for 3 mana. It's a 1/1 with double strike, and when it enters the battlefield, it draws you a card. If you manage to copy it with the Hulking Metamorph, and then you're able to exile it and have it come back, it'll come back as a 7/7 double striker, and then you can give it flying with the Steel Seraph. And basically this is how I lost the game that I was playing against the opponent that was playing this deck. They basically copied the Combat Thresher, made it a 7/7 flying double strike, and it was game over after that. And then, like I said, I added the Karn and the Cityscape Leveler. Basically, this just to create some extra tokens, because there can come to a point with, especially with the Stern Lesson that also creates Power Stone tokens, you can get to the point where you can actually just start hard casting these. So it allows you to actually use the Power Stone tokens quite well. The deck does draw quite a bit of cards. Like I said, we have Stern Lesson. We also have the Combat Thresher, which also draws cards. So there's quite a bit of synergy going on all around the deck. The problem is with any deck that's based on synergy is if you don't draw the pieces in the right order, you can have a really bad time. But anyways, we're going to try this deck out. I did play a little bit yesterday. I've made a couple of changes to the deck, and there's other versions of the deck, but I'm going to try the base one out first and see how we do. Go on to game 1, or match 1, I should say. See how we do. The deck took me by surprise. I kind of like decks like this. It's something that I haven't seen showcased too much anywhere. This is one of the most important cards in the deck. Unfortunately, any land drawn between now and like turn 3, that's a land, it's probably game over. So I'm going to have to mulligan. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to mulligan again. Yeah, if I had the 2-drop, I might keep it, but I have to mulligan again. Well, I guess we're keeping this. I wish I had kept the first 7, but so we'll put a deserted beach and a plains on the bottom. And we'll keep this wonderful hand. Okay, so they're probably playing green-red or Jund, maybe. Green-red aggro, I'm probably dead. I'm not playing too many removal spells in the main deck. Okay. Dragons. What does this thing come out? Color is a dragon? Okay. Well, we're kind of stumped out here. Probably going to bring this back into play. Maybe. Yeah, there's the black. Okay, well, we can cast it with this too, so that's fine. All right. Let's not draw another land. We'll play this, and we'll just cast this out. Just not getting little free shots with the Prowler. Oh, there's another land. Okay, deck is, I think the deck's playing 25 lands, maybe 26. It's possible, but not a good start for the deck, that's for sure. So I think 5. Yeah, well, that's game over right there. One of the things we can swap out, we can take out the Karn, bring in Invoke the Winds. We can also bring in the Farewell and take out the Cityscape Levelers. We probably don't want all 4 Invoke the Winds, maybe. I think I'm going to take out the spot removal and bring in the Depopulate. And I'm just going to cut a Stern Lesson on the draw. I'm on the play this time. Maybe I take those out and bring in these 3. All right, I guess we'll play that. And I think I'm playing 20. I'm only playing 24 lands. I think we'll cut the Soul Partition and just go like that. I'm expecting more creatures. This is better. We have this on turn 2. We can play Steel Seraph on turn 3. Turn 4, we can either protect or exile, then have a big flyer back. There is something to say too when you play a deck like it's 2 colors that you get a nice clean mana base, and you don't have all these tap lands. You get a bunch of basic. All the dragons. Just playing dragon combo. We'll give it flying and attack. So one of the things about this card is because now it's active, and if I can get some extra mana to keep up every turn, this will actually come down and... Okay. This can actually come down and let's just start pumping itself. All right, so... play this. Combat. Give this flying, combat attack. So now I can give it +3. I can give it a +1/+1 counter at the end of their turn. It works well if their opponent's trying to cast Cut or something like that on it. I can't really attack, so... Okay, so now we can take care of this. Target the Gwenna. Go to combat. Target this. Give it flying. Smash in for 6. Alright, and we still have the ability to pump the Autonomous Assembler. So we can also block and then tap it and put the counter on it. Sure. So you can cast once a turn. You may cast cards, dragons from your graveyard. Okay. Being on the draw now, I'm going to cut some of the more expensive stuff. I think I want the Soul Partition back in. And I think we're going to put in a Wandering Emperor. And just go from there. See how this actually works out. So yeah, you get the nice clean mana base when you're playing 2 colors, and you don't have to worry about all these tap lands. But yeah, the deck is pretty sweet. Didn't get to see it finish off there, but I'm going to mulligan. Okay. Put an island on the bottom. Really not to like the mulligan on the draw. Okay, well, we got the depopulate. So if they get out of hand, okay. Play the assembly worker. And we can also use this to exile as well and give it, put it back and make it basically a 4/5. So, yep. Okay, we'll play a land. That's going to cost 5 mana next turn. Yeah, I think we'll do this. Oh, this way I can get an attack in. I need another white source here. Yep. So now I can use... Okay, well, now we can cast the depopulate, but we're just going to do this. We'll just exile there. Combat. The turn. So that's one of the reasons why I like this card a lot, or why this card in particular goes really well with this deck, because it can remove a creature, or it can actually protect your own creatures as well. So now they're going to target it with something, which is fine. They can recast the Buena. Sure. Okay, what does he do? Being indestructible. Okay. Just gonna pass. See what they do. It's pretty good protection against depopulate. Yep. But let them attack. They may not. They may not. Alright. Now attack there. That's fine. I think we wait. Do we just depopulate now? No, I think we just wait. There's no need to depopulate at this point. They did miss the ability to attack last turn. Not sure why. I guess they're assuming Wandering Emperor. It's plausible. Okay, there we go. Something big coming down now. Sure. Interesting. We're playing around it, are we? That's smart, I guess. All right, we'll play this down. All right, see what the opponent does now. I probably should have depopulated that turn, but it still wouldn't have mattered. They're just going to play a ton of these, and I'm never going to be able to kill the creatures. No blocks. Okay. All right. We'll end the turn. Now we have this up. We can exile this guy at the end of their turn, but I'm guessing they're just going to start pumping out dragons. Okay. So if I block here, and we block here. All right, let's see what they choose to do. Let's let the damage go through. This should stop this from going off. Oh, it's got ward 2. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, I made a mistake there. I should have wrath, but then it wouldn't have mattered. They did play around my Wandering Emperor pretty good. So that was match 1. Not a terrific matchup with decks going over the top like that. But all right, we'll go on to the next match. All right, so on to match number 2. The first match was basically a deck that was prepared for Wrath of God or depopulate after the sideboard. So it wasn't a whole lot I can do in that matchup. Needed a bit more spot removal in the deck. I don't really know where a deck like this would fit in. I just think a synergy-based deck has some merit. Okay, we're going to keep. I did have some pretty rough draws there, too. Okay, 12 bolts. Okay. I had some mulligans, some pretty rough mulligans there in the games that I lost. Okay. So I think this might be the shining star of the deck for sure. I think just a 3-mana 3/3 flyer is just great. Okay, well this is a good curve. All right. Hopefully now we get to see some of the power of the deck. We're going to copy this guy. So he's going to target himself. Then target that one. Get flying. Get vigilance. There we go. That's basically how you want to curve out in the deck. So if my opponent can do something about that. They're playing like Brotherhood's End or something like that in the main, then it's pretty much game over. Yep. Did it get a land? I think, yeah, it didn't. Okay. So we'll play this. Go to combat. Target this. Target that. Okay. So now we got potentially have Brotherhood End coming in. The Brotherhood's End. There we go. They didn't seem super aggressive, but that doesn't mean they won't be. I'd take Karn out and Cityscape Leveler. And we're going to bring in the Depopulates and a Farewell. So Farewell I like quite a bit in this deck too, because you can just not select artifacts and basically wipe everything else out. And since all your creatures are artifacts, they get to stick around. All right, on to game number 2. So that was essentially what you wanted to see in the deck. And then from that point on, I could have exiled the Hulk, basically made it a 7/7 flyer. All right. Play this. Okay. So they did get the more aggressive start this time. This is the type of deck that this card doesn't do much against. Let them go to combat. See if they pump the... Yeah. All right, pass. Well, let's see if they tap out. No, we'll do it now anyway. Yeah, they definitely have it. Yeah. Oh, they didn't. Okay. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Play the Combat Thresher. So now I can actually touch the Spirit Realm next turn. And I get a 3/3 Double Striker and draw another card as well. Or I won't. Okay. It's fine. I'm looking for that third land. Okay, well, I don't particularly want to expose this one to another Abrade, but it'll suck up their next turn as well, so. Alright, well. Also, casting Planar Incision on this thing basically makes it a 4/4 double strike, which is pretty sweet. Okay. I'm just going to go to combat. So now I have some removal and some protection for my Combat Thresher. You just have to remember, with Touch of the Spirit Realm, you have to do it before you actually hit the end step. Looks like my opponent's having some mana troubles over there. Get that old tap land out. We're going to just hold here. Sure. Yep. Alright. Surprise blocker. Gotcha. Just get that out of the way. Okay, so It's good because I did draw a ton of land there that I actually was able to combo essentially with the Combat Thresher. So you kind of got to see the power of that, this 2-card combination using Planar Incision and the Combat Thresher, which is pretty sweet. I could have done it again actually at the end of that turn. That was match number 2, so the games are pretty quick. So game number 3, or match number 3, I should say. You saw the last match there. It basically just won out. It's one of those decks, if you get the pieces going quick enough, it's pretty much over for your opponent. The problem is when you saw in the previous match, where if you don't quite get them going, or they just manage to go over the top of you, it's pretty much game over. So the deck is pretty sweet. I do like it. I wish there was one more. I think there is a card with flashback from Innistrad that allows you to do the exact same thing, and if it's non-legendary, it gets a +1/+1 counter. Then you can also flash it back, but the problem with it is it's a sorcery. So I did have it in the deck initially, but I found it was a little too slow, and I didn't like tapping out on my turn. But I don't like mulliganing on the play at all. It looks like I'm going to have to. Okay. Mulligan again. I got Stern Lesson, Cityscape Leveler, and this can go to the bottom. So exactly what I wanted. If I can get the 3 mana, it would be pretty good. Well, it's not coming down on turn 3, unfortunately. So you don't ever really want to make your opponent's creatures bigger, but it can act as a removal spell sometimes, or at least a fog sometimes. Can sometimes buy you an extra turn. It's few and far between, but oof, that's bad. All right. Well, we now have Stern Lesson. Okay. Does it only get it if it attacks alone? Yeah, it doesn't. It can attack with both of them. GG's. Wow. All right. On to game number 2. That was rough. That is rough. Okay, so Cityscape Leveler comes out. Karn comes out. We're going to bring in the Depopulates and the Farewell. And there we go. Might want to bring in another Farewell on the play, but couldn't really go down to 4 at that point. This is pretty good. Did I show them what I discarded? No, maybe I did. Might have an idea. I think a lot of decks just play a Braid in the main deck now anyway. Yep. I think this and the Steel Seraph are actually the 2 best cards in the deck. Play this. Go to combat. And we'll just soul partition this now. Now I can also pump, I can also block and pump the Ronin if they decide to go that route. So one of the reasons why once this thing is active and you have a little bit of extra mana, it's very difficult to kill with traditional mobile spells. I mean, a Braid still kills it. But sometimes people will target it with a 3 damage portion and not the destroy artifact portion. So, okay. All right. What does this thing do? It's lifelink. Okay. Attack. Damage. Now I think I'm just going to play another one of these. I can have Planar Incision up, and I can also pump the other assembler as well. I think the fact that this thing has vigilance is what really gives it the extra oomph that it needs. Okay, opponent is going to just play Samurais. So now I can, if they decide to target one, I have Planar Incision to prevent. and then it'll actually come back as a 4/5, which is pretty sweet. Now, you do lose the counters on them when this happens, but yeah. At least it's the counter back. Now it's huge. So another planar incision now, or something would be fantastic. Play the land. Go to combat. See what they decide to do. You could double block. That's fine. Could have done it and sacrificed and made him indestructible. But. Oh, it's right. It's power and toughness equal to right. I'm stupid. It comes down as a 4-mana 3/3, no matter what the power and toughness of the other creature is. Whoopsie. All right, now we can start smashing. Combat. This gets lifelink. In the turn. Now I can copy this with the other prototype, or with the hulking metamorph. Any more banishing slashes over there? Okay. GG's. Why would you do that on your main phase? You could have done it in response to me attacking. Okay. Well, so now that I know they have Wandering Emperor over there, I don't want this anymore. I don't think I want to populate actually in this matchup. I think I want something like this. See how this goes. I used to have the white invoke in the sideboard as well to actually bring in decks that have lots of removal, but I found it wasn't that great. That way if they kill it, you bring it back as the bigger version of it, but it was never that great. I almost always would rather take one of their permanents, so the case could be made for having both of them in the sideboard. It's not too difficult to cast either one. I probably would need to up some of the dual lands, though. I might need to play some of the tap lands to be able to play both of them in the sideboard. It's kind of one of those things where you think your deck, oh, it's like my deck is actually doing really well, and then you don't realize that your opponent had to mulligan, and then you play the next game and you get completely stomped, and you're like, oh, my deck's not that great. It's always a very difficult thing to try to figure out if it's your deck that was at fault, or it was, the fact that your opponent mulliganed a bunch of times, or they flooded out, or they didn't draw enough lands, maybe. Sometimes it's pretty easy to determine that. Like if I'm ever playing against an opponent and they only ever play 3 lands, then they get stuck and they don't do anything, then I know they're just waiting for that 4th land or whatever. Although it doesn't seem to happen that often. Not to my opponents anyway. So much for another match. Oh, right to the end, huh? I'm gonna mulligan. Okay. And we'll get rid of an incision here. I only got 1 creature, so I'm gonna rope me out again. Somebody's on tilt. They did make quite a few mistakes in that game, but they still can do it in response to activating it. So something you have to be aware of as well. When you activate it, it taps, and then they can Wandering Emperor and exile it. But I think a lot of people think that it's a tapped attacking creature that they have to do it to, but it's not the case. Don't do this. Don't do what Donnie doesn't do. All right. Well, that was a little bit of game number 3. We'll go for one more and see how that turns out. All right, so match number 4. Didn't really get much of a indication from match number 3. If you don't actually get to see match number 3, it's probably because I left it out because my opponent seemed to tilt in game number 3 and just roped. So I might show a little bit of it, but we'll play. Okay. This is probably the better starting hand that I have. As long as I can get 3 lands. Still undecided about this. This might come out, might need to be a 2 mana, like card draw spell, just to be a little tighter with the mana base. Yeah, unfortunately, exactly what I said in the last match. This only ever happens to me. Never happens to my opponent, who's playing 4 colors, 5 colors. Okay. Well, I want to use my mana every turn, so I might as well. So I can also touch the token. Maybe, probably don't want to say that. But okay. A whole bunch of 3/1s. Sure. Yeah, this probably should be a 2 mana spell. It could even be like something like I could consider as well. I do have a lot of untapped mana that I could play on turn 1, and I don't think I have anything that costs 1 mana. So that's a possibility. Just to get that land. You only have 1 extra one in there. Okay. Well, we got the land. Don't particularly want to play this out in the face of removal without a way to protect it, considering I don't have anything else. Yeah, I think this should probably be changed to something else. 3 mana is a lot for this deck. Okay, is this thing a soldier? Doesn't even need to be a soldier. Just any creature. Wow, okay. Not blocking. Land. Okay. I think they would have killed it if they had a removal spell there. So I can... They're probably playing a sweeper for sure. Yeah, I don't particularly want to make a move just yet without having a little bit more mana so I can protect. So 5 mana, I can actually have this and then protect it with the planar incision. Although now when I cast Stern Lesson, yeah, I think this needs to be 2 mana. Jeez, I don't want to discard that land. I think I'll just discard the other Stern Lesson. Okay. I can play it for 6 mana, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play it for 3. It is possible that they have counter spell, maybe. I got double blue over here. Yeah. That's fair. Give it vigilance again. See what they'll do here. They'll probably just go to combat again. I assume they had some counterspell there. They could have negate. Actually, the channel of this can't be countered, so that's fine. I think I will do this now to prevent some damage here. It was one of the reasons why I didn't want to pay full mana, because I was worried about a counterspell. Then it would have left me tapped out. They are playing a 235 card deck. And they managed to get 1 copy of the Essence Scatter. Okay. Play land. I think I will play this actually as a 5 mana. Give it vigilance. Again, I have ways to protect. I can actually exile the planar. I can actually exile the Steel Seraph now and have it come back as a 5/4. That's one of the benefits of these Power Stones. Generally, you only ever want to have like 1. You only ever want to cast like 1 copy of Stern. Sure. Pass. What are the odds they have a removal spell here? Will I kill them? 4, 5, 9? No, I won't kill them. Okay. Play land. Play this as the 5 mana again. Could have another Essence Scatter, although that would be really unlikely at 235 cards. Okay. Go to combat. We'll give him flying. Okay. So now I can actually cast Planar Incision and actually kill them next turn. Provided they don't have some other random cards. They could also kill me this turn too, I suppose. But I'm not sure how you get to a deck that's 235 cards. With Triskaidekaphile. Okay. Alright, that's probably game over. The battlefield put your game on life. Control dies, you gain. Opponent loses 1 life. Okay. Yeah, no man. They have one. Oh, they're running a Spell Pierce. And if they're running the Spell Pierce, good game. Highly unlikely to have the Spell Pierce and to highly have the exact amount of mana they need to cast it. Very unlikely, but they have any way to sacrifice? Sure. We have it flying. GG's. I guess it was because it was already, I think it's a trigger that already had to target. Yeah, target creature, it automatically happens. They can't respond to the trigger already targeting. So we're going to get depopulate. Get Karn out of here. We'll get the cityscape leveler out of here. And probably bring in a farewell. Just been outdrawn by my opponent and been put in frustrating situations. I just concede and go on to the next match. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting their time. They probably got up and got a drink something. They went and got a coffee or something. They just left it running. All right, so I played 4 matches. The last 2 didn't end very well. Unfortunately, sometimes that's just the way Arena goes, where people just want to waste your time or feel like they're wasting your time. But there are some changes I would probably make. I think it's not really a place for these in this deck. I think Stern Lesson was a little bit of a bust there. If I remove Stern Lesson and Karn and Cityscape Leveler, I did like it because it did give you a little bit of extra out, but you probably more want to be on plan here. So like, you want to basically play cards that just fit into your synergistic deck. So I think I want a couple of considers. Yeah, we have Curate. I think Curate's a pretty decent card for this deck as well. I'll probably just go up to 4 Metamorphs. That way I can pretty much ensure that I get the curve. So when you look at the deck, it sort of sorts it out this way for you. But in reality, you cast these cards for their prototypes. So you basically stop at 4. There doesn't generally go past that. This one might be okay. Fortunately, it's just a 3 mana 2/1. It doesn't do anything else. If it had flying or something, I might want to play it. This one I've been considering as well, just to have a little bit more deck manipulation. It might be worth it, especially where it also flies. It doesn't need the Steel Seraph in there. And then this one's just no good. I did try this one. 6 mana that doesn't untap. Just basically gets to attack once. It's not the best thing in the world. So what I think I'd want to do is probably just basically 4 of everything good. And then a little bit of card draw thrown in. And then the sideboard probably needs some work as well. I never wanted to bring in Teferi in any of those matchups. Depopulate, yes. I may want to switch up the strategy from the sideboard. I may want some more counter spells and stuff like that. But I think the deck is pretty sweet. It's not a whole lot of rares either. It's mostly uncommons. There's a couple of these rares. I think there's some common, like I think you can play like Banishing Slash as well here if you don't have the rares and stuff like that. So it's a pretty decent budget deck. There's no mythics in it. Except for the sideboard, but then you can tailor the sideboard to whatever you generally want. You can just put a bunch of counter spells in the sideboard or something like that. Put a little bit more card draw maybe. The Power Stone thing and Karn thing, unfortunately, did not work out in any way, shape, or form. But this is a deck that I think deserves some merit. I think it's just missing like maybe 1 or 2 things. You can probably put Combat Research in the sideboard. Can basically let you draw cards as well. So maybe cut something like this out. Maybe Invoke the Winds is probably just too expensive. And then you can probably put some Make Disappears or something in the sideboard. Yeah, probably squeeze a couple of Make Disappears in the sideboard there. And then you have some ways to kind of draw some cards as well. So that's a possibility. This might belong in the main deck. And then we're just kind of playing that sort of game. But I think you just open yourself up to being weak against the mono blue deck because you're not quite as good as they are. Their threats are cheaper, they're bigger. Maybe we want some combination of that in here as well. Maybe we put Delver in here. I think maybe fixing the mana base a little bit. Maybe put the Mishra land in here as well to have something extra. But anyways, that'll do it for this deck. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.